All right. We're back Monday night, like we are every single week here with you guys, doing the AMA. We're going to run it down, all the fun stuff tonight. Lots of things happening over the weekend since I saw you guys last time. We'll get into all that tonight and more. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out with me, ask great questions. Always forget to say it, so I'm going to go ahead and start it off that way. If you do get value from these, please like, share, subscribe. Does help the algorithm and the channel. All right, so where are we at? The straight's open. It's closed. It's open. It's closed. It's closed again, and we have oil rebounding a little bit here. I haven't actually had a chance to look at it a ton in the last 24 hours, but I know we rebounded a bit. Priced in yen back up over 1400. We did dip down to almost 14,000, almost back down to 12,000 on the news that it would be open on Friday last week. And then, again, we're still closed here. So there's actually a tracker that I watch, and they have tracked how many ships have gone through the Strait of Hormuz since the conflict originally started, and they shut it down. There was the most amount of ships did go through just 2 days ago at 35 ships since the conflict started. So still way down from the hundreds of ships that used to pass through that corridor on a daily basis. But, a little uptick. So, we're back down to like 3 ships today is all that went through there. So it is still shut down. I believe they are tolling people. Still waiting on, the conflict to escalate in one manner or another. I think that there could be some things around Tether this week. I don't know if you guys saw what I posted over there on X, but Jim Rickards coming out and saying without saying that he thinks that Tether is the Bernie Madoff of stable coins and cryptocurrency. We'll see if that ends up being the case. He said multiple times that he's not calling anybody out in particular, but he made some really good points that I want to touch on here as far as stable coins go and treasuries. So right now, as these stablecoin providers aggregate these treasuries, they just sit there and they print them, 3 to 5% returns. And those treasuries are then off the market. They can't be rehypothecated. They can't be used in derivatives. They're not being used or traded in overnight repo. And it actually kind of adds to the value of treasuries. Again, supply and demand dynamics, right? However, the counter argument to that is if there is a situation where people divest from stable coins very quickly, that would also flood the market with more treasuries if people lost confidence in stable coins. And Jim's point was, if we saw Tether potentially have issues, people would lose trust in other stable coins and divest from those as well, moving cash out of crypto just in general. And I would agree with him. I think that would add additional sell pressure for treasuries. And that's not something I'd calculated in previous. Again, always changing things, always listening to new data points and kind of recalculating the thesis. So previously, I thought it would just be foreign debt that would be flowing back here to the U.S. during the reverse carry trade unwind and all of that. Oh, my wonderful wife. Oh, hey.
Viva Las Vegas.
Thank you. Viva Las Vegas. We're going to be at Vegas here in just another week. I'm going to be there for Bitcoin Vegas and then XRP Vegas. We do have an exclusive event for those that are in the mastermind on the Wednesday night. If you are in the mastermind, you will know what that location is. If you're not in the mastermind, I'm sorry. You're not invited. So back to the situation at hand. So with the treasuries, again, like I talked about, I thought that it would just be like the BRICS nations, the UK, Japan, all dumping treasuries onto the market at one time. But if we do see implications for Tether, when all of this plays out, I think that there could be a bank run and there could be a liquidation of additional treasuries onto the market. So we're going to need even more stablecoin issuance here in the US, large banks and institutions stepping in to be able to drive demand for those treasuries to be able to offset the selling pressure that we're going to see. because I do believe there's going to be implications for Tether on this. The majority of what they hold in their balance sheet, and again, Jim pointed this out. This happened to be shared during an audit. Now, they didn't have a full audit, and they never disclosed what's all on their balance sheet line by line. They have given basically the New York regulator a pie chart of what they are holding for the collateral. Not overly impressive, but the large majority of that was commercial paper. We know what happened in 2008 when many of the large banks were holding large amounts of commercial paper and the system was under stress. So I do think, that was years ago. That was 2-3 years ago that Tether did provide that pie chart. Since then, they have continued to buy treasury and gold. So, maybe they've divested of some of that commercial paper, but with Evergrande and many of the other things that people believe they may have invested in, if we did see the reverse carry trade unwind, there could be significant implications for that. I talked about a depegging of Tether in my first domino theory. Since then, I've revised to say it could be an either or, Tether depegs, or maybe there's some sanctions, depending on what Tether is being used for, what comes to light about it. So, again, there's a lot of people that use Tether. I think it provides a great utility outside the U.S. There are many jurisdictions that have found, huge benefit in transacting in that currency. I think that it's odd to me that they would have launched a U.S. compliant stablecoin in USAT if they intended to get USDT compliant within the 3-year period that they had for the window after the Genius Act. So, yet to be seen. A lot of people have flooded Tether for a long time, and it's never had any issues, right? So, always just hearsay. We'll have to see if anything actually transpires from it, but I do think it will be looped into the cascade and credit crisis when all of this plays out here in the not too distant future. We're still waiting on the reverse, carry trade to unwind there in Japan. We don't have any inkling that they are going to come out and raise interest rates in the short term here. We'll go ahead and look at the yen versus the USD on TradingView. Back up in 159-ish, 158.97, trending a little bit higher here. We really need to see 160, 161, 162 before the Bank of Japan is going to have to act. That is going to require oil to jump higher. So that would also require likely an escalation in conflict between the U.S. and Iran. They did have a 2-week ceasefire that did end today, was the last day of that ceasefire. So we will have to see what transpires over the next 24, 48 hours in that region of the world. It is daytime there now, early morning, I believe. So, if conflict was going to happen, most of the time that's overnight. There's bombings and things. And again, not wishing collateral damage on anybody, praying for everybody in that region that this conflict resolves swiftly. But in order for this to pan out in the way that I think it's going to go, we're likely going to see an escalation. And again, that kind of goes back to the cutting of the underwater sea cables. If we see Iran do that, we've also got indications that they're looking to close the Strait of Oman. So if they come across the peninsula there and close the other strait, be about 32% of global supply of natural gas and oil that would then be shut off. We've never had a situation like this before in all of recorded history where there's been this large of a drop off in oil production or access to it. I don't think we've really felt the impacts of it yet. I think that people, markets are forward looking, right? So they're going to price in what they believe is going to be the impact. But I think the impact is going to be much more significant than people have priced in. And we are going to see oil prices much, much higher in the near future, especially priced in yen, which will then, of course, force the Bank of Japan to have to act at their meeting this month, which is on 4/28. I anticipate that they will have to raise interest rates at that point. And that will then cause the cascade that we've all been waiting for as we lead up into May, June, and July here. I think we're in for a very interesting next 3 months. here in 2026. So that's where it's at. Another point to note is the hacks that have happened to these DeFi protocols, and really not, it wasn't an exploit of Aave. There's been a couple networks or protocols or DAOs that have been exploited in the past 3-4 weeks here. 2.5-3 weeks ago, we had one of those DAOs or protocols hacked, additional collateral minted, and then they exploited Aave with that, and now they've done it again with Kelp DAO, and I don't remember what the token was, but it fell like 98% in a very short period of time. The whole premise behind a lot of these, I say the whole premise, a lot of the value that people place in these tokens and networks and protocols is derived from a limited supply. If there is an exploit that causes additional minting of the token, it's no longer a limited supply. You could print more of it, right? So that's a lot of the reason I think many of these will go away, outside of the fact that they'll be tied to Tether, and Tether will drag them down when it goes down. I think there'll be a huge consolidation in this asset class when all that plays out. I think potentially in the not too distant future, again, like I was mentioning. But all that being said, Aave is now in a bad spot because they've taken that collateral, because it's a decentralized protocol. Basically, anybody can. Rave was the token's name. Thank you, Mr. Morgan over here on TikTok. So, they minted an extra $293 million worth of this token. They then took it to Aave. They borrowed, 90% LTV and wrapped ETH, and left them with close to $280 million in bad debt on their balance sheet. Now, Aave does have some backup umbrella stuff that they put into place. None of it's ever been used or tested, so we will see how they fare on this. I wish them the best. I hope that it works in the way that they had intended, similar to what reinsurance or insurance would be on a protocol like this. But with it being open and decentralized, and it's accepting the collateral, right? It doesn't have any way to be able to discern if it's good debt or bad debt or what it is, if the tokens are legitimate or not. As long as they're a token that is ETH based, you can stake it in that protocol and borrow against it. So some pretty significant implications for them. They are at 100% of their ETH withdrawal limit. And the reason that took place was Justin Sun, along with many other people, withdrew $5.4 billion worth of ETH out of that protocol when all of this took place, in fear that other people would also, do the bank run. So with that, they're really at limit. People can't withdraw any more of their stuff. And with that, there's a potential that people would start to lose trust, eroding that away. If I were the central planners, I would orchestrate stuff like this so that people felt the need or were compelled to then involve the regulators and institutions and guardrails and oversight and compliance into all of these DeFi protocols. I'm not saying that, this was orchestrated or that it was done on purpose, but it's really convenient with the timing of everything else that's playing out here. So all that being said, lots of news out there in crypto. If you're not paying attention, it will change on a dime. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the super chats and all the questions. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. We'll be back Wednesday night. I'm actually home this week, so I'll be in the office here for both of these this week, and then traveling the next 4 weeks. I'll be in Vegas for Bitcoin Vegas and XRP Vegas, and then we'll be at Consensus and Hedera and F1 out in Miami. And then we'll be in Bermuda at SALT in that conference. And then I have a family office conference that I'm speaking at the week after that. So I think I'm home a total of like 6 days in the next 4 weeks. Not great. But, Unfortunately, there's a lot of back-to-back stuff here between April and June. We have one more event in June, and then I think I'll finally get to slow down for the year. So, all right, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. We got BT, aka Nana. Hey, Nana, how are you doing? She says, "Greeting, Jakes and Tea Lady. Hope you're doing well. Married, filed the LLC through your app. Awesome. Can my hubby file a SM with me as a manager, or do we file two LLCs later? Will there be a similar offer? Many blessings." So you just need somebody to be the sole proprietor, or not the sole proprietor, excuse me. That's a completely separate type of entity. It's late and I need some more tea. Okay. So it's a single member LLC. If you do a partnership, you can, I don't know what state you're in. Depending on what state you're in, you might have a qualified joint venture exception in your state. You can Google it, look up if you're in one of the 15 states that has a QJV exception. If you do have a QJV exception, then you can have a partnership between you and your spouse, and there's no taxable implications for adding your assets in there. If you, oh, she's in Texas. I don't think we're a QJV state. Let me look here. Texas QJV state ? All right, so Texas is a QJV state. So yeah, it would be fine to add your husband on there if you did want to file a partnership. We're going to file it as a single member LLC if you work with us. And then, like you said, you can add your hubby as a manager. So that's not a problem. However, you may want multiple LLCs. So the way that might work just depends on how much you have, what you want to do with it, and your long-term goals. You may have your fund bag, right? Your LLC that has creditor protection, and you want to maintain control over those assets. You may have another LLC that's inside of an irrevocable trust. Wyoming is where we're going to file the majority of this stuff, unless there's some, edge cases where we file things in the state that you reside in, or in Nevada or South Dakota. Most of the time, Wyoming, though, if it has to do with crypto. So sounds like you're on the right track. Sounds like you've done everything that you need to. I would just add your hubby as manager on there. You should be good to go in the short term here with your initial contribution. Again, moving in there with no tax implications on the front end of that contribution. Great question. We got another one here. Oh, it's KT baby. She says, it's Truth of Hearts. She says, do you think it's possible you might have a special promo or a perk for people who got their LLCs for a bit higher price last year and have been rocking with you for a while? Grateful for you either way. So that's why we're doing this promotion for the $700. A lot of people did go ahead and partake at 2,000. Doing this is going to save you the $500 that the other people are saving, basically. The renewal was going to be about $1,500 a year, so we're less than half of that with this promotion. And some people, again, can't quite afford things if they are a little bit higher price, and so we've moved that back down to make it a little bit more economical. Because again, we've moved away from Laughlin. We've in-housed all this stuff, and anytime this is a trend. Okay, so you're going to see this from us. We will expand prices up as we add more value over time. And then as we bring things in-house and bring costs down, we will do everything that we can to pass those savings on to our clients. As we continue to escalate up in AUM over there at Anchorage, the fees compress to us from Anchorage, and we will eventually lower rates to everybody else there on that side. When we go to lenders and we have more collateral, we're able to negotiate better rates. I actually just talked to Arch Lending while I was in New York this last week, and we got some really cool stuff that we're working on for you guys to be able to bring down the borrowing cost against your XRP or your other digital assets. They will be announcing a lot of that here in just another week or two at Bitcoin Vegas and XRP Vegas. So the more people we have that work with us, the more we can reduce costs, the more we can pass those savings on to you guys. And again, that is what this promo is for those that did buy at a little bit higher price. By purchasing at $700 for the renewal, you're going to save $500 off of what you would pay, and actually it's a lot more than what we were going to charge having to be involved with Laughlin. So thank you for the support and the good question. And we got one more super chat before we jump into the ones from tonight, and I'll go ahead and get them queued up here ready to go. Lots of people becoming members on the channel. Very cool. Appreciate you guys. All right, last one. Oh, she had two of them on here. Casey Baby. Sorry, I missed both your super chats last time. I apologize. She says Trump has had this chess game made of dominoes played and won 1,000 times before his first term. Sit tight, people. Relax. Timing is everything. God bless. I don't disagree with you. If you look at quantum string theory, okay, so this is way out here, but just hang on with me for a second. If you look at quantum string theory, there's all these different realities, right, and timelines that you might be on, and you exist across the spectrum of these. In that theory, there are moments in time where all of those timelines compress to a single moment and then expand again from that. I think that that's real. I think it's legit. I think that there are certain events that are inevitable in history, and depending on which timeline you're on, there's probably different catalysts or things that create a systemic issue or whatever's going to happen in order to lead to that moment in time that's inseparable across all of those. There's been a couple of those, I think. In the past 3 to 5 years where, and then I think you could probably orchestrate certain things to move things forward faster. And it, like, it sounds crappy, but if you look at, let's say you had Project Looking Glass, that's the thing. And the US government had a way to be able to see in the future and see all of these different outcomes based on certain events playing out. You could then work back from that and find those momentary events that could catalyze multiple ripple effects isn't the right word, but like downstream effects that you were looking or intended to create by just doing one thing. So I talked about this a little bit last time with them shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. This accomplishes, it's a multi-faceted move that will move forward multiple objectives at once. So, talking about 5D chess and all this stuff, look, I think if you had seen the future, let's say Trump really did, go back and take Tesla's trunks and all that is true. And, if you go read the books, Baron Trump's adventures in the late 1800s and his mentor, Don, and The Last President being the last book of that series, just wild stuff, right? So, interesting times we're living in, irrespective, whether it's orchestrated or not. I do think that the outcome is going to be, again, it won't be a utopia or a dystopia. I think a lot of people get wound up one way or the other. I think it'll be middle of the road. They'll be good, they'll be bad. And it's really just your perspective on life and how you use the tools at your disposal, just like it is today. So we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out of your Monday to come hang out. Honest Aim, good to see you. He says, Mr. Legacy and the Tea Lady, thank you for all that you do and that you have built for us in the Beyond Broke Mastermind. As you've been traveling a lot recently, what's the most exciting thing you've seen or person that you have talked to? So serendipitous, last week when I was flying to New York, across the aisle from me was the head of marketing for G Treasury and Ripple. She was on the plane from Dallas, headed back to New York. Again, completely unplanned, just random conversation that got to take place, which was cool. They were down here for another conference. So shout out to G Treasury and everything that they're doing for treasury management, liquidity, and all the other wonderful products and solutions that they're building over there. I think that they're doing a great job. I had multiple dinners there in New York last week. Head of crypto and AI in Bermuda, have some follow-ups with him. Many other family offices. There was two family offices that I met at an event that I sponsored and was part of, spoke at. We had one in Miami, and then the last one was in New York here. Both these guys are in their late 30s. Both of them are worth in excess of $200 million. Both of their first generation family office. Both of them have children that are young, somewhere between 2 and 15. The one husband and wife had children very early in their life. Just, wild to see other people so young and wildly successful. And both of these people had exits on businesses. One guy had sold 7 different businesses in 2023. He currently runs 40 different businesses, employs about 2,500 people. And the other gentleman had created some patents on medical technology that he had used to scale a couple companies and exit those. And now he makes, a lot of strategic investments in that area, in med tech, biotech, extremely intelligent on that side. You just meet a really diverse crowd, at these events, and everybody's made their money. They're extremely competent in a niche area. So that's like, if you don't pick anything else up from tonight, if you can become extremely competent, like one of the best in the world at one thing, everybody wants to be a jack of all trades and know everything about everything. You kind of get washed out if you're doing that. If you can become exceptional at one thing, you're going to do great. Like you're going to make it. You're probably going to have a significant exit outside of your investments in crypto, right? And crypto could be your one thing. It's my one thing. I feel like this is all I look at. It's all I understand. There's macro involved with it. I think I bring a unique perspective. So anyway, that being said, if you could take one thing away, just get really, 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 really good. Hone in on whatever you can do, or be the best in the world at. And then other people that are the best in the world will come find you. So I appreciate the question. And I'll continue to share as I come across more unique individuals that have unique life experiences and share those with me. I will pass those along. Amber, she says, Jake, I love your lives. Thank you so much, fam. Appreciate you watching and the support. She says, what price do you think Flare will be in 2028? Man, so we're 2 years from now. Flare is under a penny today, by the way. Love Hugo. Love what he's building over there. I think that the product and solution that they brought to market is exceptional and very well thought out in the way that they don't cause a tax implication by reflecting that value. The time series Oracle and the way that that's orchestrated, I think, is a huge value add. And people don't really give that enough credit. They're only interested in F assets and generating yield and all of that. But really the infrastructure that they've been able to scale over the past 5 years is second to none. And I think if they can get KYC, AML, the cybersecurity risks and some insurance things in place, I think that they're going to be in a really good spot in the next 6 to 12 months to grow that to maybe one of the largest utility-driven investment-driven protocols on the XRPL. So all that being said, if they're able to execute on their vision, which I have no doubt that they will be able to. I've met the team multiple times, all brilliant. I think you could easily see a double-digit flare, maybe more than that. So $10, $20 flare in the next couple years. And like I said, under a penny today. But I do think anything that's involved with XRP, where XRP is going to be used as collateral, that's locking it up, we'll see additional upside. And that includes Solana. XRP, I think, will be the largest winner, but any network that's using XRP as collateral, either wrapped XRP or something else, to be able to generate additional yields or provide benefit to it, or those that are willing to stake it there or, borrow lend, it's going to see some additional price appreciation. So Flare, I do think will probably get the lion's share of that, but obviously there's other benefactors and other networks. And I think really eventually everybody's going to figure out that XRP is premium collateral. It may take the BIS giving it a tier 1 designation for everybody else to realize that. I mean, I already know it. But when they get that designation, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of XRP available on the market for settlement. The majority of it, I think, will be locked up as premium collateral. So, to answer your question, 10, 20 bucks in the next couple of years for Flare is my bull case. Presto says, now that I have an LLC and I'm signed up with DWP, do I move all my crypto from my various wallets to Uphold? Or is that putting all eggs in one basket? So if you're with DWP, you have an account at Anchorage. So you would need at least 50,000 XRP or at least $100,000 in crypto in order to be able to become a Digital Wealth Partners client. We're in the middle of a rebrand, and we will have, like private client versus just wealth. But all that being said, we have some additional security that we've added to the Uphold infrastructure. We're continuing to fortify that and add other things to it to make it more robust than what Uphold provides, even though it's already very good. So all that being said, I'm still one that likes some diversification on how I'm holding my crypto. I do have a portion of mine still had an escrow that'll be due back to cold wallets over the next 3 years. And then everything else is held there at Anchorage. So I look at that like, okay, I've got some of this in these cold wallets outside of, institutional custody. But yeah, you can do what you want, right? So we are going to look at other solutions to be able to provide additional benefit and insurance in kind on people that are holding their assets on our platform or with our partners. That's not available yet. Again, like I mentioned, we're going to go to Bermuda, which is the insurance capital of the world, and talk about that. So, looking to create those things in the near future. But as it sits today, I would probably keep things a little bit diversified. You could hold and buy more, hold a portion of your bag and buy a little bit more there on Uphold. If you do have some, with Digital Wealth Partners, you are an actual client, then you can move it into Anchorage's infrastructure with a portion of your assets. And then you might hold some, out on a cold wallet or even another exchange. We have people that hold things across, a variety of ways in order to be able to reduce risk or exposure to one specific basket, like you said. Eventually, and so the goal for us, just so you guys know, is to eventually be able to diversify across a bunch of different custodians. As the OCC finalizes a lot of these preliminary charters, we will add on additional custodians that Digital Wealth Partners and DAG are working with. And ideally, all of those can be reflected in one unified UI. But even though you might be diversified across multiple custodians or have access to different yield products or solutions in each one, you'll be able to see all of it in one spot inside your app there. Seymour says, legend, please do a podcast with Brandon Biggs, last days 24/7, and talk about the future of XRP and what it means for everyone. Actually, I'd never heard about Brandon until I was just on Crypto Dill and his podcast, and he kind of turned me on to him. Seems like God's using him in some capacity, speaking through him and sharing things. I am not a prophet. I have a strong relationship with God. I pray on a regular basis, but I will never claim to be a prophet or have seen these things, or I feel like I've been divinely guided, and I've been able to think critically through some stuff and share that with you guys. But it definitely wasn't like a download from above that I was just imparted with this knowledge. And some people do have that. Some people can review the Akashic record, or they speak directly with God and they get information. It's not me, but interesting the things that he's saying about some of the stuff that we're looking at, and him calling Trump potentially being shot in his ear. Like, that's wild to me. So I don't know. It's hard to refute some of that stuff. James, he says, "Hey Jake, why do you think the Quan brothers have different timelines on price appreciation? You both seem relatively close to the inside Ripple sphere." We saw those guys at Swell this year, and they've also said $1,000 XRP. They said $1,000 XRP on FinTech TV. I've been on FinTech TV. I didn't say $1,000 XRP on that publication. Not that I wouldn't. I just, wasn't a question that was proposed. So, look, there's lots of people out there that don't agree with my timeline or my thesis, but they agree on the long-term outcome. And we could argue about semantics, about how we're going to get there and the volatility between here and there and what all's going to happen all day long till the pigs come home. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like, if they're right or I'm right, we're still both happy because we're on the right side of history. We've got, our eggs in that basket. We're going to get to participate. You guys are going to do the same. A lot of this is just, I think the sentiment's down in the market and people want stuff to talk about. And, everybody wants to know timeline. If you're in crypto, you're here to get rich quick type deal. It doesn't matter to me how long it takes. I'm confident that the events that I've talked about for the past 2 years will play out, and they will, catalyze to the inevitable outcome that we're all waiting for. How much longer does that take? Is it a slow rollout? Is it a fast cascade? I don't know. The dominoes are falling slower than I would like them to, I can tell you that. So, again, differences on semantics on how we get there, I don't think matter so much. It's really that those guys are probably the only other people that I've seen that are willing to come out on large publications and put their neck on the line for the high prices that I'm talking about also. So I commend them for that. There's not a whole lot of people. Most people hedge at this point. And they and I are pretty much the only two people I've seen that really haven't done that. So shout out to the Quan brothers. And Easy A. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not. I really got to learn a little bit more about their business model because I wasn't sure what they actually did. I got to talk to them at Swell. And so they put on hackathons, and they're basically venture capital. And they will invest in early stage startups that are building unique value propositions on chain or in other AI applications, which is really a sneaky, I don't want to say sneaky, but like a really interesting way to go about it. They host the hackathons, and then they're able to see the best talent, and then they seed those guys, and they've done very well. So again, shout out to them. Rick Johnson, my man, he says, last Monday, the show was very short. You said it would be made up Wednesday, which was a regular length. Can you give us an extra 20 minutes tonight? Oh, Mr. Johnson. So I got my Aura ring. Okay. So just so you're, what? It's my wife. Oh, okay. She says, no, I can't give you an extra 20 minutes. Absolutely not. My wife needs some time too, Rick. I'm sorry. She's screaming at me from upstairs. She's very angry. Native Texan says, interesting. All the shorts on oil, XRP assist margin liquidity, and a squeeze also. Yeah, there's a lot of things culminating here for exactly what I've been talking about. I do think that we could see $150 oil, reverse carry trade, all the things that we've been talking about for a long time. But when is that going to happen? Whenever it's coordinated and supposed to happen, in my opinion. We got John, Mr. Jags. He says, with so many companies supposedly using XRP as reported, how can the price be so low? Butterfingers for the win tonight. Still waiting on price appreciation. We're all waiting on price appreciation, John. You know, just like anybody else, I get beat down with it. But I've done enough to know that it's going to happen, right? I've had enough conversations. I don't think anybody can predict exactly when that's going to happen. But, you know, again, the macro that I've talked about is slowly playing out, and then it will be suddenly at some point in the near future. Do think that you could see Satoshi move his Bitcoin. I've said that before, but I'll just kind of reiterate it again. With the advent of quantum, you've got many people over there on Bitcoin voting that all the early wallets do what they can to move to new quantum proof wallets so that they don't have to fork the network, and that, you know, all the Bitcoin is then safe and cannot be hacked or taken by a quantum computer. You've also got the XRPL upgrading its infrastructure by 2028 to be post-quantum and proof for quantum computers. That is a real threat. You know, it's not like global warming or this other stuff that's been propagated for many, many years now. But really, you know, it's to be able to stabilize 2 qubits, you have to be at sub-zero. And even in space, there's still vibration and frequency that could cause that to destabilize. So I don't know, you know, it'd have to happen in an absolute vacuum, basically devoid of any temperature. Or they're going to have to figure out some way to be able to simulate that or add additional constraints that cause that to galvanize and hold stability between those qubits before they can actually get quantum to work at scale the way that they're looking for. So all that being said, we're a little ways out. I think we're a couple years out, and you know, maybe even longer than that. You know, post quantum's been coming for a while. People have been talking about that. You look at David Schwartz; he's saying, you know, 2 to 5 years, I think, is what he was quoted a couple years ago saying. So, if the XRPL is quantum proof by 2028, I think that could be accelerated if it needed to be. So, but all that being said, I do think that potentially Satoshi will wake up and move his Bitcoin. But back to the price of XRP, how can it be so low? Again, a lot of people are trading it in the OTC desk and the dark pools. As long as there's volume there, it's not going to make its way onto exchanges. XRP still trades along with Bitcoin. I haven't looked at that chart in a little bit. Let's look at it here. I like to look at the XRP versus Bitcoin chart to see where things are at. We're back at a level of support here on that chart as it's moving back down. We saw it rally. This looks like the rally before capitulation. So I don't like saying that, but you know, this is a blockchain backers deal. He talks about 7 waves. In wave 5, you roll back up to the top of wave 4 in wave 5 before you make one more wave down to set a new low. So that's kind of what this is looking like to me. Again, I'm not a TA guy, so don't quote me on that, but I do think we could see XRP move a little bit lower against Bitcoin in the near future. And then after that, I think it's off to the races. Yeah, looking at this chart, well, on the 1 day, it's looking pretty good. It's actually looking like it's coming back to test support before it moves higher here. So who knows? Your guess is as good as mine on the TA stuff. but I do find it interesting, and I do think that we're not far from XRP appreciating substantially against Bitcoin. Rick, I can't hang out for another 20 minutes, Rick, but I'll answer your other super chats. He says, you have more what if scenarios than anyone I've ever met in my life. That's fair. Jake Claver, oh, the fun is being Jake. I will unleash Pinehead level agony cues on you now. Okay. Yeah, hit me with them, Rick. We'll run them down. We got Dark 30. He says, do you think XRP, RUSD, and other cryptocurrencies / stablecoins play a part in the de-dollarization process? From the petrodollar, yes, but I actually think that they drive additional demand for U.S. treasuries globally, and it will allow the dollar to continue to play a role on the global stage and remain extremely relevant, at least for another 5 to 15 years, as we kind of embark on this new financial system. So, in one way, yes, but in another way, actually adding $4 demand in a digital world. Here he is again. He says, Jake, I'm at the freaking shell question answer, man. Question 27. What do you do when it's pouring rain and you're driving on bald tires? I've done that many times in my life, Rick. And the answer is don't follow closely behind other people or try to maneuver very quickly, because you will rear end somebody. I know from experience. So really the best answer would probably be go buy new tires. I know they're expensive. Like I don't know how many times in my life I have been replacing one tire at a time because I just didn't have the additional money to cover all 4 tires at once. The majority of my life has been that way up until the last really 3-4 years here. So not fun. I wish you the best of luck on all that. And yeah, like I said, drive slow. You're going to hydroplane. Don't follow closely behind other people, or drive on the spare. This person says drive on the spare. It doesn't matter if you have one spare and all 4 tires are bald. I can assure you, you will still hydroplane and you will still run into somebody, even if you have one of the spares on, because that's been a situation I've found myself in also. So luckily, I've gotten a little bit better at driving in my old age, and I think it's because I actually have tread on my tires. Who would have thought? All right, a couple more good super chats here. We got Wellbeing Space. He says, hi, thoughts on administrative repricing by the BIS. So this would kind of be like the gold repricing that we saw in 1933, but that was done by the US government. The BIS is the Bank of International Settlements. They are who gives designations to different collateral. Could they reprice XRP? Not directly. I don't know that they could. I mean, I guess they could state that, that's premium collateral and that certain circumstances or price would be what they need in order to be able to justify that. But I would think it would be post those things happening that they would be able to identify it or regulate it as premium collateral or a tier 1 asset. So it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Which one's which? Could they be the ones that cause it? Are they going to be the ones that affirm it? I don't know which order it's going to happen in. All I know is they're given designations here in Q2 of 2026. Retired Fire Chief, good to see you. He says there's lots of talk about XRP being repriced. Is that just another way to say price appreciation? Yeah, basically. Again, like when you have a central authority that controls the majority of the supply, and they are the global reserve currency. So this is really sounding actually pretty compelling now that I put it that way. when the U.S. controlled the majority of the gold, they were able to reprice it from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce on their balance sheet. And then a couple more times, 37 and then 42. And then I think it sits at 42 and change on the Fed's balance sheet still to this day since 1971. We just removed the gold standard and the backing and closed the gold window temporarily, according to Nixon. Obviously, that wasn't temporary. We're just a few years past that now. All that being said, I lost the question here. There it is. Repricing. It would probably have to come from the BIS or the IMF if they were going to do it that way, but I think they're going to do it through supply and demand. I think that's how they're going to push the price to where it needs to be. Provident Exodus says reason they would switch to XRP rather than USDC or USAT when Tether has issues. The DEX and liquidity. And their ability to drive liquidity into it very quickly through the ETFs or demand on exchanges. USDC, I don't know if you've ever tried to trade through USDC, but it's very low volume. Let's say you wanted to buy XRP with USDC. Depending on what exchange you're on, it could be like maybe $20,000 clips is all you can process through there. It's really, there's a lot of slippage using that. And so you would need something that was a high liquid value that had a DEX built into it to be able to route payments through the most efficient manner. And that's what XRP does. Even USDT, it's been the trial mechanism for this. And even Ripple's used USDT in their ODL product. But they will move to not RLUSD, but XRP once it does have a significantly higher price and is more liquid. Roughing it, not Roughnet. My wife corrected me. She says, at Japan's interest rate meeting, I know you believe that they will raise rates. I'm curious, are you thinking 70% chance or more? Thanks. P.S. What's the tea? What tea are you drinking tonight? I can tell you here. Hold on. This is toasted coconut almond bark. That's what I've got tonight. And it's good. Very soothing for the throat. I like the apple tea. My wife will give me the apple tea, or sometimes there's like an orange one. I don't know if you got stayed in a hotel. This is probably about maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Orange bergamot. You guys ever smell orange bergamot? It's fantastic. It's the smell of luxury. So anyway, complete side tangent. Let's get back to your question here, Roughing It. Yeah, I'm probably 75%. I'm 3/4 of the way there. Could they kick the can one more month or a couple more months? I just don't. They've never done an emergency meeting, and with the way that the war is working right now, I think that this could be a big move this week on oil and where things are at. So yeah, I'm 75%. So greater than 70% that they are going to raise interest rates there in Japan at the meeting on the 28th. Because I don't anticipate that they're going to have an emergency meeting. I think it's going to be at the meeting. This person, because I'm going to butcher their name if I try to say it, I think it's Renee. She says, Jake, thank you for being a beacon. Thank you. Appreciate that. I trust Roth pays in USD. Does DWP Roth pay in kind in XRP? Are the AUM fees for the Roth IRA product? Blessings to you and your family. Take care and thanks again. So I had a conversation with my team earlier today. It does both. It pays in cash and in kind. It aggregates more XRP. So last month, people ended up with almost 1% more XRP in their portfolio at the end of the month than they started with. So, nothing crazy, but that compounds pretty quickly, right? So if you had one more 1% more XRP each month, also growing more XRP 1% each month. And again, it's not guaranteed that it'll make 1% each month. That's just the first month of this algorithmic trading strategy running. It could do worse than that. You know, present and past results are not indicative of future returns. I have to make all those statements, and this is probably a good time for my disclaimer because I didn't do that earlier. Everything here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Uh-oh, something's messed up on the TikTok. I didn't even get my disclaimer in. Oh well, they'll hear it later. So entertainment and educational purposes only. This is not financial advice, and you should always speak with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. The opinions that I'm sharing are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or its subsidiaries. So that being said, the IRA product that we have is good. We do charge AUM fees on it, but I'm trying to get creative on that. We've got a consult with another professional, because I am not like, I'm really good at crypto and macro. Okay. I know enough to be dangerous about all the rest of the stuff that we do. And the only reason is I've been able to listen and work with really professional people that have been doing this stuff for 20, 30, 40 years. So, you know, I know enough to be dangerous, but on the qualified accounts and the IRAs, there's a way that I would like to structure these. Actually, Max Avery came up with this earlier today. Him and I were having a conversation. We'll see if it's going to work or not, right? Because they're qualified accounts. There are stipulations around how those are regulated and what has to do. So I'm going to find out. But as of now, it pays in both cash and in XRP, and just depends on the algorithmic trading and how it does. It aggregates the cash position so that it can take advantage of the dips and buy lower and average down, and also sells on the way up to be able to build a cash position to be able to compound stuff. So anyway, glad to hear they finally got a product that pays in USD, but we do, you know, create additional in-kind gains there inside of your Roth IRA with Digital Wealth Partners. And if you believe in the long-term upside in the asset, that's probably going to be a higher return than just that USD that you're getting. Lake Hay, they say, hey champ, I renewed my Wyoming LLC back in December, and your support team told me that I cannot use the Uphold application until I pay the $700, which I really don't want to do right now. Can you hang out? You can go ahead and upload your stuff. And back in December, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. You can just pay the $100 a month until your next renewal, and then pay the difference if you wanted to. I have to talk with my team about that. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention, though. If you don't, and look, I'm just going to be real. The app is great. Our team did a fantastic job getting that to market in a very short period of time after we moved away from Laughlin. It is not as robust as I would like it to be. It will be very robust in all of the offering that you have there. You know, in the short term here, it's just a bank account, managing your LLC, and the exchange there at Uphold with reduced trading fees. In the future, you will have a debit card that gives you cash back in XRP, credit card, lines of credit, a money market account, borrow, lend, access to DeFi, a robo advisor. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that we roll out for the app over the next 6 to 12 months that will absolutely justify the cost for participating on there. So if you want to wait until those things are available, you know, it is going to be a little bit more expensive at that point to pay the renewal, but the fee will stay the same at $100 a month. So up to you on what you want to do. Again, we appreciate everybody that's, you know, rolling with us early and in support of the mission and what we're trying to create. I got a big vision for how all this is going to work. And like I've talked about before, you know, loyalty is a big thing for me. People that are loyal and in early, I try to make sure, you know, continue to reap rewards and benefits as we continue to scale and grow. You can talk to people in the mastermind about that. The people that started that with us are still paying $25 a month for Carbon One 3 years later. If they were an OG that saw the vision and participated early, we've never upped their rates. You know, they're grandfathered in. Same thing, you know, there was a lot of people that helped us when we started the RIA and wanted to work with us early on. We did 40 bips for all those people that are grandfathered in there. So we've run different specials at different times for people participating early in things, and we don't forget that. We make sure that those people are, you know, they're near and dear to our heart. They're our community, and again, none of the stuff that we're creating or, you know, working on matters if people don't want to work with us. So big deal for us. And again, appreciate the support working with us on the LLC. I completely understand if you want to, you know, delay that until there's more benefit there on the app before paying for it. Here for the fun says Uranus is in Gemini on the 25th. All major wars occurred with this placement, and Uranus leaves Taurus, traditional finance, into now Gemini is new young energy to the USD and new digital, plus astrologers talk of great reset. You also got some interesting stuff on the 23rd. So Venus and Uranus are at the anaretic degree of Taurus before they move into Gemini, the 29th degree on the 23rd here in just a few days. So depending on where that sits in your chart, you know, that could mean a lot of different things for you. I do watch astrology pretty much daily, you know, most of the time for myself, because I do think that there are patterns, just like you're pointing out here, and currents that happen in your life. And it's a lot easier to swim with the current than against it. So if you know, what the cosmos are doing, and you can kind of align whatever you're doing with what's going to benefit in that circumstance, you're going to be a lot less upset when things don't work out the way that you had intended them to, or take longer than you thought they would. But yeah, a lot of things shifting here. Outer planets shifting is a big deal in astrology. And so we'll just have to see what takes place in the next few days. Joseph, he said, thank you for the super chat, my man. He says, do you think Ripple ends up gifting a large portion of the escrow to the US government? If so, wouldn't Trump reset the price to a higher number, like $10,000 to offset the debt? They could also use force majeure to take it from Ripple. There's a bunch of different circumstances. I think that all this, again, has been pre-negotiated. There's 1,700 NDAs. Ripple met with the Fed in 2014 via Greg Kidd. There's a ton of stuff, right? So I don't know where all the escrow ends up. I think it gets divided up between multiple people personally. And I do think that Ripple will probably end up with, less than 20%, which would then allow them to meet the criteria for the Clarity Act when and if that actually ends up getting passed. I'm not hopeful at this point. I mean, we are 4 months in here, almost 5 months into 2026. I told you guys back in 2025 that it wasn't going to get passed in 25, and everybody was mad about that. I don't know that we're even going to see it passed here in 2026. I'm thinking Q1 2027. You've got Warsh being voted on to move in. You got midterms coming up. You got recess in August. And there's a couple other bills that they want to get passed prior to the Clarity Act. So unless they really codify some language and move with some urgency here, it's not going to happen. I don't care, though, personally. Now that we have joint guidance from the CFTC and the SEC, I think all we need is a statement from the OCC determining how yield is going to work for stablecoins and what that's, how they're regulating it. And I think even without congressional regulation, I think if all of those bodies are moving in the same direction and there's clarity, guidance for the market, then we should see things appreciate here without the Clarity Act passing. All right, we got the real Jaqueline. They say 4 Will the AUM still be 2% on anything under 5 million, even for the yield product when it becomes available? Yes. Um, as look, most people are going to be well above $5 million. At some point in the future, we're not going to take anybody with less than $20 million. I can almost guarantee that on the private wealth management side. Now, on the wealth side, we'll have the Uphold app and some other ways and stuff that people can work with us on. But at scale, post price appreciation, unless you're in the mastermind, we're probably just going to set it at 20M. And then it'll be 40 bips. Like, it's going to be far less than what it costs right now. But yeah, we'll maintain the pricing, but we could change it. All we got to do is update our ADV. And again, like I said, as things appreciate and we have reduced costs, we would love to pass those costs on to our clients. So it's not to say that, it will be for a period of time until we can get caught up and things are good. And when I mean caught up, I just mean I think we're going to have a significant amount of inbound all at one time. And that being said, 3 to 6 months after price appreciation, we'll probably revise our fees. I want to get to a point, and this is much further out. I don't like to be nickeled and dimed, and I know other people don't either. They want to know what it costs and just be like, this is what it is. So we may end up having like a platform fee that we charge, and then products inside that where we share in economics with our clients. AUM fees are always a race to the bottom. Right now, we get charged AUM fees because Anchorage and our other providers do that in this space. But it's ideally we don't charge any AUM fees. We charge a platform fee, and then we share in economics on the way that you're putting XRP to work, and not have to charge on that side. And that's what Schwab does, right? So eventually we want to become the Schwab of crypto and digital assets and tokenized securities and all the other stuff, with some extra stuff on top of that for family offices and managing your full financial picture, including your estate planning, your taxes, your insurance, all of it rolled into one unified application for people. But that's going to take some time, and there will be a lot of iterations and fees and how we structure things until we get to that point. Bessemer Trust charges, I think they're 50 bips on the total amount of AUM that you have with them for all of their services, but they don't take any clients under $50 million. So, you kind of got to walk this line of like democratizing access, because we believe in this asset class and we want to make sure that we're helping as many people as possible, while still running a profitable business to be able to continue to scale and position ourselves where we can meet the demand when it shows up, which is a hard line to walk a lot of the time. Moisty Cal says, hey boss, I watched The Big Short over the weekend. I made that Michael Burry meme for you. That was awesome, dude. I haven't had long hair like that since high school. So to see myself with long hair was quite interesting. I appreciate the meme. He says, how does it feel to be the next Michael Burry? I don't know that I would consider myself the next Michael Burry. Again, I haven't made bets like him, right? So I'm not trying to short a financial instrument or build out. Well, I mean, I guess we are building financial products that never existed before. But that being said, I feel that I want people to share in the economics and the upside when I'm right on this. Whereas Michael managed a hedge fund, and obviously his LPs shared in those economics. But it's not like he was shouting it from the rooftops and he was on podcasts and he was out here doing lives, two days a week, helping the public understand what was going on so they could position themselves correctly. And that's what I'm doing. I want people to be informed. I want people to be able to think through things critically, see what's going on and, behind the curtain a little bit, and be able to put it together before it happens so you can benefit yourselves and your family. And if we work together on the other side of that, awesome. If we don't, also awesome. I'm just excited to see people win. And I think that matters. You know, there were a few people that kind of caught wind of what Michael was doing and also ran the same strategy closer to when it paid out. You watched the movie, so you know that. There weren't 250,000, 300,000 people, 400,000 people that he was, you know, potentially impacting and helping that had access to be able to invest in that product and get the upside on it when everything panned out. I think a lot of people, you know, that were impacted by '08 and the GFC would have been in a lot better spot if they had known what was going on and could have positioned themselves accordingly, or at least got out of the stock market before the fall started happening. Yeah. So I appreciate the compliment. Thank you for the Michael Burry comment and the meme. I really did enjoy it. But at the end of the day, I really do want people to benefit, not just me and our hedge fund and our clients. Jaqueline, again, he says, oh, maybe he's got 3 or 4 super chats. It says, I have an LLC now, and I will go with DWP post price appreciation. Will you offer pooled access for smaller accounts for my adult children holding smaller bags of XRP I gifted them so they can earn returns too? So we will have family stuff where if you have additional LLCs or segregated accounts under your profile, they could come in under you now. I don't know what their age is. They would need to be 18 to have their own account. But if you have ownership in those LLCs, or you were the manager or the trustee, if they're trusts, talk with our team about it. I'm sure that there's something that we could figure out. But yes, is the answer. We will absolutely, we want full families to be able to participate with whatever segmented entities they have, however that's orchestrated in order to get the full benefit of the services we're providing. Rock Dad, excuse me, says Carbon One, awesome dude, glad to see you. He says my laptop was hacked and my entire bag was stolen. Oh my gosh, Rock Dad. Trouble getting Bank Social to move quickly. Any suggestions? Please help. Oh, yeah, Secura unfortunately is the best option I have. I did talk to John Squire. I'll email him right now. I doubt that he'll get back to me this late, but I will do this right now for you. Inbox. Discard. New mail. Here we go. John Squire. So you guys may have seen the interview that I just did with John Squire. I know I got his email in here somewhere. Anyway, he was telling me that he invested in a company that's also doing recovery for, here he is, Blockchain Ventures. All right, new email, John, crypto recovery. All right, I will send that here in just a second. But yeah, if you want to email our team and say, hey, Jake's emailing John Squire to find another avenue to be able to try to recover my crypto. Secure is good when they're good. Sometimes they don't act very quickly, and I, again, apologize for that. You would think, like, I mean, it's not their main business, unfortunately. John runs Bank Social, and they do very well with that. And so, you know, Secure is kind of an extra thing that they do. T-Lady has spoken. She has spoken, and the answer was no, I cannot hang out for an extra 20 minutes tonight. The old nail pounder says, hola, mighty legend, and the magnificent T-Lady. Pros and cons of putting LLC in a trust or not, taking profit, borrowing, etc. So it would depend on the kind of trust that you were moving the LLC into. Pros and cons, 6, 7. That's what the hip kids say. So a revocable trust, highly recommend. You're going to get probate protection on that side of things. If you were to use an assignment to move the LLC's equity into your revocable living trust, you could do that at the state level. You can also set up a revocable living trust in Wyoming for some additional benefits. We can do both of those. Now, if you can be all three things on a revocable living trust. You can be the grantor, you can be the beneficiary, and you can be the trustee. It doesn't provide any creditor protection. It doesn't have its own EIN. It is a pass-through entity. It just is just for probate protection. Now, the creditor protection you're going to get from the LLC anyway. So combining the two works pretty good. If you wanted to do an irrevocable trust, that's a little bit different story. You would be the grantor on an irrevocable trust. And this could be any type of irrevocable trust. It could be a spendthrift trust, a dynasty trust. There's a bunch of different provisions out there that you can put into that type of trust to be able to affect what you're trying to accomplish depending on your circumstances. I would highly recommend working with a very good estate planner or tax attorney to be able to structure that the right way and have them licensed in whatever jurisdiction you're filing that in. We have a couple people in Wyoming we can refer you to, or you can work with us to do it. Now, the irrevocable trust, again, you can only be the grantor. So you're not going to get benefit of those assets. You're going to set up your kids or other people as beneficiaries. You're going to designate somebody else a trust protector. So they're going to be able to make changes to that trust separate of you. You want to make sure that you trust that person because they're going to be your trustee. They're going to be a trust protector, and they're going to be able to change stuff in your trust. So make sure it's a close family friend. Ideally, they have some legal knowledge, but they don't have to know everything. The other person that you're going to set up for that is a distribution trustee. So the only way that anybody's going to be able to get anything out of the trust is they're going to have to get the distribution trustee and to sign off on it, basically. So if you want to take anything out or do anything with it or borrow against it or whatever, they're going to be like, hey, is this to pay off creditors? If the answer is yes, you're not getting it. That's the whole benefit. You get very strong creditor protection with an irrevocable trust in certain states. So South Dakota, Wyoming, Nevada, those are the three jurisdictions locally to the U.S. And then obviously, there's some offshore stuff as well that provides a lot of robust creditor protection. It takes about 2 years to season that in. You want to get that going sooner than later if you anticipate using that. I would be moving stuff that's legacy XRP or digital assets into an irrevocable trust once you're over $500,000 to $1 million in current value. The other portion you're probably going to keep in the LLC that's owned by your revocable trust so that you have full access to it and you can borrow against it, take profits, do all the other stuff that you're talking about that might make sense depending on, again, your goals and objectives. And ideally, you're working with a financial advisor on that side to make sure that that's done in the most efficient manner to mitigate taxes and reach your long-term goals. So I know that was a mouthful and you're probably drinking from a fire hose. We'll probably chop that up into a short and we'll, share it again. Or you can listen back to it because this is recorded. We got the Colbert. He says, I'm part of the mastermind. We met in South California yesterday. Awesome, dude. Excited to see meetups going on all over the U.S. He said, I just want to give you a shout out to Million Drops and Ivan for putting it together. Thank you, man. Million Drops has been a fantastic mod for us. We've got a lot of leaders there in the group that are setting up things all across the U.S. For mastermind meetups. I'm not at all of them, which is really cool for me because it's grown into a full community that has a life of its own. And it's, unified in a way and galvanized in a way that you start stuff with intentions, but to see the culture grow to what it has been is just surreal for me. So if that sounds cool to you guys, the ones that are listening, if you want to be part of a community that has their own meetups, more in real life events than any other community in crypto, private deal flow, financial education, business resources, access to exclusive content, and other things. You can go to beyondbroke.com. Go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2. Month to month, no contract, cancel anytime. We have over 16,000 people there in the mastermind that find a lot of value on a regular basis, and they stay in there. So if that tells you anything about, the benefits people are getting, it does for me, and I'm really proud of it. Joseph, again, thank you for the super chat, my dude. He says, you think, we already been over this one. Sometimes it kicks me up in the chat. All right, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and then we're going to work our way back up. So go ahead and just stop the super chats, because I'm not going to get to the rest of them if you guys post them below this. All right. We've got Mitch, my man. He says, how do I move forward with your company and get set up? Currently have a substantial amount of XRP on Coinbase and looking to get institutional holding. Just go to Digital Wealth Partners, digitalwealthpartners.net. Make sure it's the .net, because there's some sketchy people out there that are trying to dupe you. But digitalwealthpartners.net, and then you can go to the Contact Us form, fill that out, and one of our advisors will reach out and have a conversation, answer any of your questions that you might have, figure out what you're looking for, make sure that we're a good fit. We're not a good fit for everybody, but they'll be able to answer all your concerns and address those things and make sure that you have all the information before you move forward. And again, we would love to work with you to be able to get your assets secured over there at Anchorage, so that we don't want anybody to end up in the same position as Rock Dad. Prayers going out to him that Bank Social gets that rectified quickly and gets him his assets back. Not fun getting hacked or your stuff taken. And again, I can't tell you, and this isn't to fearmonger or tout anything, just honestly, we've had, I don't know, it's not a ton of people, about 7. There's 7 instances I can think of in particular where I've had people email me upset that they were hacked, they lost their XRP or other digital assets, and they said, look, I could have been holding it with you guys at Anchorage, and I didn't want to pay the fees, and now I've lost all of my stuff, and I feel silly. Like I would pay those fees in a heartbeat to make sure that I had this stuff for my family at this point. And my heart goes out to those people. I feel horrible for them, but I get people on the fees too. I look at it more like an insurance policy. I feel very comfortable sleeping and not worried with my stuff over there at Anchorage. Whereas before, I was concerned all the time when I had it on exchanges and on cold wallets. So again, that's what we're here for. But again, it is a business. We do charge fees, and sometimes they don't always make sense for everybody. So we've got Beholden. They say, hey, Jake, thanks for being awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here. He says, no price appreciation and renewals coming for LLC. Can you hold your fees until price appreciation so LLC can pay for itself? You don't have to renew. You can just let it hang out if you want to. I don't know when you filed the LLC. And I get it. You're not the only one that's cash poor. So, you can hang on and wait for things to play out. You don't absolutely have to use the app today. We just, we want to provide people that do want these things access to them sooner than later. We've had a lot of people that wanted to work with us that had less than 50,000 XRP, and this is the avenue for us to be able to do that and eventually unify that with the wealth management side. And obviously, price appreciation would help a lot of things along. But, unfortunately, we do have 100 employees at this point. I don't know if you've ever been responsible for 100 people's paycheck and their families, but I don't take that responsibility lightly. And unfortunately, we do have to charge for the services that we're providing and cannot defer those to some unknown point in the future. Anthony says, hello, Master Tea Lady. Can New Yorkers use the DAG app for business accounts and debit card? Carbon 2 client. Believe me, Anthony, I am fighting for it. Unfortunately, we are at the mercy of what Uphold can currently support. Just launching the app, we would need to get a bit license ourselves, or they would need to get a bit license in order to be able to facilitate New Yorkers. We're hoping that maybe there's a way to be able to go around with no look-through. But you are going to have to provide your driver's license when you set up the account and go through KYB, KYC. So they're going to know if you're from New York. The way that I've seen people get around it, if you're in New York, is to get a Palau ID. So you can become a citizen of Palau. You can get your Palau ID. I don't think it's super expensive. I think it's like $100 or something. And then you can use that ID when you sign up and use your Wyoming LLC, and you'll be good to go. You'll get approved. But that's the only way that I've currently seen people get around it. And you can do that with other exchanges too. It's not just with ours. But again, we're working around the clock to be able to figure out how we can involve other jurisdictions. It's not just New York. We want to work with Canadians and many other people that, you know, Uphold currently doesn't provide access to. Pegasus, he says, or she says, not sure which one, will you see any kind of airdrop from Ripple? Nope, that is a scam. If you ever see anything like that, do not click on it, block it, report it. It is a scam. Jay Marley says Crypto Phoenix is a new channel. He has mind-blowing technical take on XRP, says the repricing will be done administratively to 5-6 digits. His calculations research seem top-notch. Thoughts? I'd have to watch it. I don't know. Obviously, people get excited about high numbers. I also have logical, you know, backing to how I come to those conclusions. I'm sure that that person probably does too. Look, I am the most optimistic XRP bull you're ever going to see. It's not going to 5 digits off the rip. Okay. 4 digits, I can see that. I see how that could happen. I see the math behind it. I see the use case. I could see $1,000, $2,000 off the rip. I think we're likely going to see a pit stop of $50 to $100 before we get to the 4 digits. Okay. Repricing to 10,000. There's been a bunch of lore about that. I mean, back in like 2020 and 2021, you know, I was part of Jimmy Valley's valuation committee. We had about 44 different individuals that were part of that research committee that put together the valuation and the white paper that he created. Shout out to Jimmy Valley. In case of a situation where the U.S. government tried to take it from people. That way there was a fair valuation on mark to market, so that they would have to pay a fair value for people. They can't do that. They can't freeze the XRP. They can't mandate that you give it up, especially if you're a corporation. I mean, maybe they could do that for individuals, but if you're holding it in a company, definitely can't do that. So there's maybe a few reasons we help people do that on our side. But all that being said, I do think five or six digits is going to happen. I don't think it's going to take that much longer. I think that the 5 digits could happen next year or late this year, depending on how things go. But I do think it'll be an escalation. I think there'll be some steps up to that. I don't think it's going to be one big rip where it's just repriced. But again, I will go watch the channel. I would love to see their thesis and see if I can, you know, maybe there's something that I don't know that they know. Digital Dynamics Group, they say, took a big gamble on XRP last year and went all in, unfortunately, way down, trying to DCA as much as I can and yield news to help take the sting out of paying the AUM fees. Keeping the faith. Yes, so we made some significant progress today on an income product that'll be, basically like a yield product to be able to cover the fees on our side. This was me coming at it from a different angle than the other 4 ways that we've been trying to do it, that I think will be the fastest to market. So I don't have a timeline. I'm working as fast as I can on this. This is my number 1 priority every single day. My team is upset with me because of how malicious I am working toward getting a yield product, because I know I'm one of you guys, right? Like, I am frustrated at this point. I'm paying every single month to be able to hold my stuff there. I am a client and consumer, and I feel the same pain that you guys do, and I want to figure that out as fast as we possibly can. So the answer is yes, we're making progress. I'm moving it as fast as I can, and I'm hopeful to, I've told my team that they have a very short time frame to figure this out, and I'm on the same boat. It's not like I'm not part of the team. So we're working around the clock to get something to market to be able to cover those costs for you guys in the near term. And good job dollar cost averaging down. I think you're doing great, and I think you'll be well rewarded in the not too distant future for that. We got Logan. He says, have you had any conversations lately that have confirmed or vindicated your theory? Big friend from New Zealand. As of lately, I talked to a guy at Futurist last year. I've had some other inside baseball from a few people early this year, but nothing in the past. But I also haven't been to any crypto conferences. Most of the stuff that I've been doing has been on the family office side or RIA side, more on the enterprise level type stuff. But we do have some significant crypto conferences coming up over the next 4 weeks, and I do expect to run into a few people there that may provide some insight. And if I do have those types of conversations, I will share them in the mastermind, not out here on a public forum. We got Noah King. He says, Jake, in your opinion, how much XRP does one need to hold before considering setting up an LLC or trust? $50,000 to $80,000 at current value of XRP, maybe even a little bit less than that. $40,000 worth of XRP at these prices would probably justify setting up an LLC if you're domestic here in the US. If you're international, it might be a little bit more than that. Trust, the revocable trust, sure. Irrevocable trust, you're probably looking at, $300,000 to $500,000 worth of XRP at current prices before you would consider setting up an irrevocable trust and spending the 20 to 25 grand that would cost. So, different strokes for different folks depending on where you're at. But those are the 2 thresholds that I look at when trying to decide whether to set up one or the other. KT Baby, good to see you. She says, Rick's suggestion, no super chats. Go buy tires. I mean, for the amount of money he's put here in super chats, he could absolutely have bought at least 1 tire. And I will give it back to you, Rick. Like, if you need a tire, let me know and I'll send you your super chat money back. Because I don't want you dying. I need you to, be able to stop in the rain. Brent says, hey, Jake, I watched the order books on XRP for hours the other day. Most trades are just the same size, buy and sell, up and down. Bots are holding price. Yes, they are, Brent. Not going to say any more than that. Gusman says, hey, Jake, what are your thoughts on Japan something bank going live today with Ripple money transfer services? Thanks. Big deal. Japan is going to be the leader for this. I think that you're going to see adoption in Japan for XRP before the rest of the world. And I think that they may force the rest of the world to adopt XRP. So The more banks that are going to use it there, the sooner it's going to happen. Silverado man, he says, when Japan raises interest rates, how long after for Moon? I'm pretty confident that things will unwind very quickly at that point. It's kind of a trickle flood. They've been very methodical about putting everything in place on the front end of the dominoes, and they continue to kick the can on that one. So I'm pretty confident that when that one goes, that's when you're going to see the cascade unfold within a week, maybe less, probably less, but up to a week when they do that. We already did this one. Did I get through all the super chats? I'm sure I missed somebody. If I did miss you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please send it on other social media platforms or email it to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and my team will get it over to me, and I'm sure we will catch it on the Wednesday night live. Yeah, I think we did it. I think we got through all of them. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up a little bit early then. Sorry, Rick. My wife wants to spend time with me. As always, love to see you guys here. Like, subscribe, share if you get value from this. If you think this is cool and you want more of it and you want more exclusive details, you can join the mastermind. Go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, #1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2 there in the group. If you need the LLC and you want to work with us on that side or setting up your trust, you can go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com and you can enroll there, get everything set up. The LLC, corporate veil, or the administrative services on the LLC to maintain your creditor protection, and all the other stuff that we provide, along with the bank account and the exchange account through the Uphold integration. And then last but not least, if you got over 50,000 XRP or $100,000 in crypto and you want to make sure that that's secured and protected for your family and get access to the other institutional products we're creating at Digital Wealth Partners, you can go to digitalwealthpartners.net and use the contact us form. Again, appreciate y'all taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. We'll see you Wednesday night. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.